The Deep Blue Sea Dungeon. Smudge was a water pixie, which is kind of like a tiny magical mermaid. But the thing about water pixies is that they are trouble. Not really bad trouble, just mischievous, fond of playing tricks. Tricks like turning all the jellyfish pink, switching the whelks shells for buckets, and chasing the fish in circles until they were too dizzy to swim. Small stuff. The trouble was that no one wanted to play with her, I wonder why, and she complained about this to a small lobster who wasn't quick enough to get away from her. "Do you want to play some pranks on the prawns?" she called. No thank you," said the lobster, trying to scuttle away. "Not you as well. The clams have clammed up on me, the dogfish went into their doghouse to hide, and the mermaids won't even talk to me." Yeah, well, that is probably because you hid all of their shell brushes and they ended up with hair like a seagull's nest. You know mermaids are fussy about their hair." It all came to a head when she made the mistake of pranking the Sea King himself. In the dead of night, she snuck into the sea castle and hid all of his clothes. Nighttime was brilliant for pranks. As a finishing touch, she added a moustache to his top lip. Giggling, she snuck away. The next day, the Sea King had to take the council meeting in a very silly swimming costume, the only garment left, which didn't fit very well, to mention the whole moustache thing. He was furious. "I've got enough on my plate with the pesky pirates. If you put 1 foot wrong, I will get them to take you with them," he roared at Smudge. This was true. Pirates had been plundering not only the boats on the water, but the deep seas below, and the king's fortunes and all the riches of the undersea kingdom had been stolen. "If you behave, you cannot stay here." Smudge huffed and puffed and went off in a sulk. Well, if they all thought she was going to be naughty all the time, she might as well be really naughty and have some fun. In the deepest part of the ocean, hidden away from the light of the sun, lay the eerie deep blue sea dungeon. This mysterious place was a labyrinth of dark, shadowy caves and tunnels, each winding deeper into the cold, silent depths. The walls of the dungeon glistened with a strange, wet sheen, and peculiar, luminescent algae cast an otherworldly glow, flickering like ghostly candles in the murky darkness. Strange, twisted shapes loomed in the shadows. But it's not something many have seen, because this sea dungeon was out of bounds. And it was out of bounds because of what was inside. The legend speaks of a creature so fearsome that even the bravest of sea creatures dared not speak its name. It is said that its eyes glow like fiery embers in the dark, and its long serpentine body is covered in scales as hard as armour. Adventurers who dared to enter the deep blue sea dungeon spoke of eerie lights floating in the distance and sudden shadows that dart through the water, always just out of sight. Some say they have heard the sorrowful wail of a monster, a sound that fills the heart with dread and the urge to flee. Yet the creature remains a shadowy enigma, its true form hidden in the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon, waiting in the silence for those daring enough to seek it out. And that was going to be Smudge, wasn't it? Yeah. You can see where this story is headed. Monster schmonster! It's just another way for the Sea King to stop anyone having any fun, she scoffed as she took out of her pocket a slim set of keys made from the finest fishbone. She had stolen them from the Sea King while he was telling her off. Everyone had been too distracted at the sight of his swimming costume and moustache that they hadn't even noticed. She just couldn't help being naughty. Unlocking the vault-like door, slowly she crept inside. It was dark and damp, with only the smallest flickers of light showing the way. Excitedly she crept in, further and further into the gloom, until something twinkly caught her eye. Shiny coins. jewels, gold and silver plates and cups. This wasn't a dungeon, it was a treasure trove. She gasped in delight to see the precious things and ran her hands through the shimmering piles. But then, what was that? A slow creaking sound, then a thud, and another thud, and with a rumble and a thunderous shake of the floor, something large appeared in the dim light. Monster! It was indeed a monster, and never mind monster schmonster, it was bigger than a ship, with glittering scales and very, very long teeth. Smudge swam for her life, the monster in pursuit. Fortunately, she could cast some charms to evade him, but as they left the dungeon, she knew that she had to get it away from the Sea Kingdom. But where? There was only one place, to go up to the surface. Sea sprites hate leaving the water. It plays havoc with their magical powers, but there was no other option. The monster was roaring, with great steamy spubbles shooting out of its spout. He was getting closer and closer. She held her breath as the shimmering surface appeared, and with a whoosh soared into the sky. The enormous creature just inches away from snapping at her this way and that, until Smudge was surprised to see that the creature seemed to have paused and turned. Something had caught his eye. In the distance, she could see ships. The dastardly pirates! There were lights and noise, and singing and jeering could be heard in the distance. With a howl and a hiss, the creature slowly turned and then dived back down. Smudge began to smile. The pirates wouldn't be smiling for long. Sure enough, in a few moments, the sound of shouts and panic could be heard, and calls of, "Anchor up!" and "We're going down!" and "I don't want to be dinner for a sea monster!" It was pandemonium. Well, for the pirates. The creatures of the Sea Kingdom didn't miss a thing. They'd been terrified at the sight of Smudge being pursued, and could see the pirates hadn't been as lucky. They watched in delight as the ships began to flee, with the ripple of the sea monster behind. "You've saved the Sea Kingdom from the pirates," they cheered, and even the Sea King had to thank Smudge, although he did ask for his keys back, and said it was still quite naughty to steal them. But of course that wasn't the end of it. Smudge told them all about the riches deep in the dungeon, forgotten for centuries, guarded by the monster, and they rushed to see for themselves. It was 1,000 times more than anything the pirates had taken from them, and so they cheered and feasted, and the kingdom became prosperous once more. I can't say Smudge turned over a new leaf and totally stopped being mischievous, but she did find that if you're nice to people, they are generally nice to you back, and that's quite a good feeling. And the pirates? Well, as far as I know, they're still out there, being chased by the monster. Turns out pirates are more interesting than piles of treasure. Tastier too. Thank you to Amber for the idea for this week's story, and a massive thank you to Isla for the brilliant character idea of Smudge the Water Pixie. Thank you, Isla. If you have a name for a character you would love to see featured on the stories, use our StoryQuest character creator over at funkidslive.com. And let's head over to this week's Story Master. It's Amber. Well, our Story Master this week is Amber, who gave us the idea for the Deep Blue Sea Dungeon. Amber, it's such a mystical title. What made you come up with that idea?
So I think my brother was doing an activity at his club, and then I just thought of it, and then I was like, the Deep Blue Dungeon would be good.
Well, it's the Deep Blue Sea Dungeon, right? What happens down there? It sounds kind of spooky.
I think there would be lots of mystical creatures just roaming down there.
What kind of creatures are in a dungeon?
Maybe a one-eyed monster.
Last question. What's your puppy like, Snoopy? Tell me about Snoops.
So he's very hyper when he wakes up, but when he goes to sleep, He's just like a flat pancake because he just lays there.
Amazing. Well, I'm really excited for that. And Snoopy sounds like a brilliant puppy. Amber, thank you so much for sending us your story. Got an idea for a story? Tell us the title at funkidslive.com/storyquest and we could bring your story to life. For a new story each week, make sure you hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode.